Takeaways from this morning. What have you? Let's start with what have you learned? What have you liked about Holacracy? Then we get next into the concerns and open questions. So let's think about the tactical meeting we did and the governance meeting. What have you learned? What do you like about it so far?
I think the analogy of the game, like treating it like a game, is really helpful. And I kind of liked that aspect of it, like thinking about it like that. Going into it thinking about it like it's a game helped me. I think that helped me do it.
You can get a bit about serious play about yourself, right? There's like, let's step out of my role, think about how this actually interacts. Let's not take each other so serious, and then go for it. Yeah. Like that. Hold on. Yeah, also. Yeah.
There's no one.
Is it no longer? I think it's on this one now.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I think it's on.
Has no one seen that? And what's that one
Thanks
called?
for being so helpful.
I just linked it in the main channel.
It's called Group 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had my printer sheet, so I
Sorry.
had to reconnect.
Just skill it. What else? What are else your insights about? What is?
I like the focus, and I've always liked that ever since I got to know the Holacracy. The focus on one person and their needs, and I think we still have difficulty, myself included, to not chip in, not evaluate that proposal from my perspective. It doesn't make sense to me. It's slowing me down. I think as long as we can step into that mentality, let's just focus on helping that person right now. If it does something for them and doesn't cause the company harm, that's cool. That's safe enough to try, and that safe enough to try concept is good as well. And then let's move with it. Let's go with it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, mine was basically the same thing. I think that other than requesting an outcome or a project, but still obviously that's your thing, you're not really deferring responsibility to anyone else to deal with something that you're finding. Like if you're the one with the problem, you're going to be the one that solves it rather than telling someone else and then getting them
We should not have this one because
you
this
over
is
the
the
attention.
Wait, no. That's the.
Well, they're on there.
Yeah.
It's called close it.
Yeah. That's sorry.
Yeah.
Is that Sacco?
Hello, remote people, can you hear?
We need this one on mute and that one on. We want that on video.
So there was a problem with the Jabra.
Wait, yeah, because Jabra with that one doesn't
Have
work.
we
This
need-
one
You
is
want
the Jabra that works. I don't
visuals here,
know.
audio without.
Yeah.
Back away, slowly.
What do you think I'm shopping now? I'm shopping now.
Is that muted?
Okay.
That on mute.
Can remote people hear now?
I don't know.
No, that's not been turned back on.
Yeah.
So remote people can't hear anything right now,
Pippa.
Yeah, we need
and
to
we
turn
can't hear them either.
Pippa's
So
not in the
who's
room, it's
doing
that
something with this?
Just
Yeah.
need a new laptop.
Well, why can't we just have the Jabra connected to this?
Because this one doesn't work.
Someone tripped
What?
over the wire and
fucked it like.
But there's another Jabra just
So just plug that Jabra in instead.
I put that Jabra in there. It's not the Jabra.
It's not the
problem.
Jabra,
It's
it's the system problem.
Like we could restart it.
Okay.
I was basically saying the same thing as Pal, focus on one at a time, but also that it's good that people have to own their issues, like, they can't delegate their issues for someone else to deal with. In a way you can, in requesting an outcome or a next action, but you're the one that has to sort of implement it and put it forward.
You have to bring it forward,
Yeah.
and if it fits someone's roles, it's truly yours. Yeah, cool.
I'm still not clear on how this is going to impact our actual meetings.
Yeah, we'll get to the questions and the stuff there.
Oh, okay.
I first want to hear the stuff you already know, you already like.
I found the governance meetings actually much more challenging than the tactical meetings. And I think the reason is that people here are so willing to challenge rules and push against them. And so, every meeting basically pushed against definitions of terms and things like that, which was quite challenging to facilitate.
Yeah, but I've been in, I think, 3 of the 4 governance meetings. And I think in all of them, there was at least one objection that was, I disagree with it because some sort of it's not good enough. there's an objection there's a proposal from one person, objection, and it deals with another role. Then a third person steps in and says, hey, this is not good enough for me. Yeah, you're right. Let that go. If that tension is solved by that person with that proposal, how stupid it looks from the outside, if it solves it for them, let's move on, right? And then in that iterative way, everybody can get their tensions on the agenda, solve it the way you like it. It will be for the rest of the circle very hard to interfere with that. And we're not looking for perfection, let them deal with it. And only when your role is involved, when it works or limits your role, then you have a reason to act and play in that governance meeting. So that makes governance much tougher. But the same in tactical actually. Tactical, the majority of the time, is an interaction between two people who need something from each other in the role they fill. I would always say don't help each other out, let them play it out. If it works for them, then we'll move to the next point. And when your agenda point comes to the agenda, all attention on you to solve your tension. That can speed up meetings a lot. Yeah. What else? What else were insights about these 2 meetings we did?
Struggled to understand the difference between a tactical issue and a not valid governance objection and a governance objection. Whatever it was, tension around that. And you can explain that better.
So what kind of?
I still don't understand.
So what kind of questions are here on the back side? This kind of stuff, right? Or is that what you mean?
Probably, yeah.
So it was about what's a tension to raise in a governance meeting and what's a tension that's a tactical tension.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
So in tactical, you assume the roles are right. We just operate based on the roles, the circle setup we made. We try to get aligned as fast as possible. And if I ask you a question to clean up the room, and you say, hey, that fits my role, I'll do that. Awesome. Within the roles we have, we can align, get stuff done, and move forward. As soon as you say, wait, cleaning up the room doesn't fit my role. So I cannot solve it suddenly operational. I can bargain into, if you do it this time, I might do it next time. Hey, but that's a temporary solution.
Yeah.
Then you move it to governance. You say, wait, actually, does it make sense for us as a circle to be accountable for cleaning up the room? Yeah, it fits our circle. Which of the roles is then accountable for it? Do we create a new role? Can we solve this in governance that it happens on a continuing basis? So that when we move back to operations to tactical, asking that question the next time is so much easier. So within tactical, you operate within the roles. And in governance, you kind of step out of the roles and say, like, hey, what can we change to the interaction between the roles, what roles are accountable for, and then try to play that game.
That's helpful, yeah. Thank you.
So is it fair to say a tactical meeting you might have weekly or however often you want to, because it's something that's kind of like business as usual, but you'd only have the governance meeting if something came up within the tactical meeting that you'd say, oh, actually, it's trying to set a new expectation, it needs to be a governance. So that's not a weekly, monthly, whatever, it's as and when compared to...
How you like to do it? In the beginning, I suggest do a weekly governance meeting, because it's a kind of weird rhythm to deal with proposals like that, so get your practice. And then over time, you'll figure out what the right rhythm is. Some organizations like to do it every 3 months or when it comes up and kind of a lot together. Other organizations say, we'll do a tactical meeting weekly or monthly, and immediately afterwards we'll do a governance meeting. And that lasts 15 minutes and tie it together. Because whatever comes up in tactical, if you then say, no, this doesn't fit my role, 15 minutes later you can address it. How cool is that? What is what you like? As the secretaries, it's their job to schedule in a way that fits, so they can figure this out. Do you want it weekly? Do you want it monthly? When you see a lot more role-to-role interactions, you might not need a weekly tactical meeting. Some organizations still do, and when you're in software development, those weekly sprints really benefit from a weekly face-to-face meeting. if you have role clarity, if you know who you need to have, you don't need to wait for a meeting. And suddenly meetings happen only monthly or whatever is needed. Leadlings, where are you?
So people might not necessarily know that they're lead links. So
No, but during the game, how much? What did you actually do? What have you done during the game? What did you do during those 7 minutes as a lead link? Not much.
You do it beforehand, you just dish out all the roles, and then in theory everyone gets on with what it's supposed to do.
Who shuffled roles in between or somewhere? What did you do?
We added another QA person in.
So, funny, right? You're lead link, you're the boss of the circle, and nobody did anything except for one person that changed one role. That's self-organization, right? And I saw a lot of stuff happening. And maybe it was a bit chaotic and stuff like that, but it's very rare that the lead link here raised an hand. Yes, I was very active. This is your role as lead link. You want to do some stuff to get a circle started. You want to think about, does the purpose of the circle, is it served by the roles? And sit back, relax, let the roles do their work. That's what you like it to do. And hey, this worked out pretty well. If you as lead link find yourself very active, you probably have some governance, create some role that takes that out or stuff like that. Which roles did you take as lead link? Which roles did you have?
Builder and quality assurance.
Quality assurance?
Secretary, but
Secretary builder?
Builder.
Builder and sticker guy.
Nobody had the city planner role. Funny, right? In the beginning we said, hey, that looks like the boss, that guy defines the builder, and all the lead links gave that role to someone else. Funny, right? That's what you suddenly can do when you discharge people from roles at the start. Who fits best that city planner role? Who can, and how does it work out with those builders? And as lead link, you want to take up the roles where you add most value, whether that's builder or quality or whatever it is, right? Now you can certainly do that. If you as lead link of a circle have 0 other roles, kind of weird. Probably there's someone else better positioned to take up the lead link role. If you have 75% of the roles in the circle, it's also kind of weird as lead link. Then it's probably just a role, and why would you need a circle for that? What are you trying to control? But somewhere in between, your lead link, you can allocate those roles, and probably you fill a couple of roles in that circle as well. And you see yourself operating for those roles probably a lot more than from that lead link role. But hey, maybe an hour a week or an hour a month, you put some time in the lead link role. Is the setup or the role allocation still fit? Do the roles cover the accountabilities we have as circle? Okay, I'm done. I can do all the work in all the roles again. That's the kind of the lead link role is still there. It still has a bit of power. They can take people in and out of roles and stuff like that. But it's in that sense, it's also a minor role. Good to experience that during a game. Yeah. So what are the challenges? I think you started with it.
Yeah, so I'm having trouble seeing how this meeting format translates into kind of the meetings that we have already and the information that we're trying to share, convey, talk about in those meetings.
So let's assume for now that we will only do those 2 meetings, tactical meetings and governance meetings for each circle, no other meetings. What would you miss? What information is not shared? What is not getting dealt with?
So, for example, in the weekly tax credits meeting, we have a space to talk about the claims that we filed in the last week and where and how they went, basically. That's not really a tension of any kind. So it's not really kind of discussed as a tactical or a governance.
Did you see
issue.
project updates on the agenda of a tactical meeting?
The only thing I could think of it is like the recurring actions of just like general things to discuss, but I don't know. It seems like it's not.
If I have to choose between operational and governance, I would choose operational at this moment,
Yeah.
right? It's a very operational topic. Anyone an idea how you put that in?
I would say project update. This is a project update, so you want to communicate your key projects, so really important stuff that you're working on right now,
Yeah.
and you feel it will be of value for other people to hear about it, or it will be of value to you to share the kind of stuff that you've been sticking your teeth into. So what we did in our little, in our kind of city planning thing is that, what's that company called, by the way?
New Amsterdam or?
New Amsterdam, yeah. Is that we quickly had status objects, so we said, okay, project park. And then it'll be like, okay, project completed, trees are falling apart. Okay, so then project police station.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So can I? Yeah. Okay, cool.
So which of those 5 things would you, from the back of the card, what would you actually be doing?
It would be a share information. I get that bit, but it's kind of where it comes in. Project updates. There's no it changes from week to week, right? So it's not like, I don't think in the tax credit meeting you'd want to update every single person on every single claim that you're working on, because that could be 30. At the same time, but at the same time, you don't know necessarily the week before what claims you're going to file in the next week, so you can't have it on an agenda as a project that you want to talk about in that meeting.
So it sounds like it's relevant for this specific circle to frequently update on the most relevant claims, something like that, right? To have that update, to not only all 40, but some you would select out of that, to share information about that or put an action to it to solve something.
But I guess that kind of happens daily in the stand-ups anyway. I'm just saying I'm kind of confused as to how it fits in to the way the information that we share. Really.
So this is something we'll have to figure out going forward. Daily stand-ups are a kind of shorthand of a tactical meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a kind of short update what you did yesterday and a short plan of what you're going to do, something like that, right? And there are a lot of different stand-up formats, but you could tie that into it. Another way to do it is that you say, well, we'll add a checklist to the tactical meeting that says all relevant claim updates put on the agenda. So you add them one by one and then you solve them, and then how you solve them you're probably sharing information. So you add it to the tactical meeting of that circle to make it explicit that you want specific claims on the agenda, whether they are a project or not. So let's see how we can tie the meetings, the information sharing you currently do within the Holacracy framework. And if you have an all company stand-up, stuff like that, probably it's good to keep doing that. Team meetings, we stop. We do that now circle by circle. Let's try to put everything you do there within the new circle structure. And see what we miss. What you typically see, because we hardly solve stuff in a tactical meeting. We address it, we put an action out of it. So besides the tactical and the governance meetings, you might start seeing more short one-on-one conversations. Topic-specific meetings. I need half an hour to brainstorm on a marketing campaign or whatever. And with a few specific roles, a small group, to solve a specific issue. Whether it's one-on-one or small groups, but something to solve a very specific topic. If the 5 minutes or 10 minutes you have for each point in a tactical meeting is not sufficient enough, then you will deal with that. But it's much more,
Can we do something about the temperature and air in this room, because I'm feeling pretty sick. I don't know how anybody else
Yeah,
is.
it's on,
Is that on again?
21.
pretty old, eh?
One on each side will just come through as well.
I feel like on an
Sure, why
SNS
not?
training session where I we brief you about this really complicated topic in a room that just gets warmer and warmer. But my understanding about the project updates is you don't have to update on a project. It's up to you to decide if your update is important enough for everybody. But if anybody requests of you that you update on a project, then you have to update. So it's not required to update on all the projects.
I think that could help with the tax credits meetings, because sometimes that we have things on the agenda which is, oh yeah, no, that was a standard claim, no, could just not say anything.
Yeah. Fair enough, and there's nobody have attention with that, let's move on. The idea for the afternoon, are there more burning questions and things after the morning?
I actually still don't quite understand the technical meeting tension part. Like, I feel like as we were discussing, like as we were starting to bring up agenda items for like the tension topics, I know that we're not supposed to really have a discussion, right? Like, so someone brings up their tension,
Yeah.
and then usually in typical GrantTree style, it's that like everyone kind of wants to chip in, and it starts becoming a discussion. We're not supposed to do that.
Nope.
But then what happens is that people who wants to say something, instead of being able to participate in that discussion, we end up continuously adding on to the tension agenda items. So it was just never gonna end. Like, I don't think we ever really got to the end until we realized that this is an infinite thing. Like, how are we gonna be able to address this? Like, is there some sort of rule like that? Like, when do you stop discussing it? Like, how? Yeah. I just don't.
Great question. So that, as facilitator, what I typically do is I see 2 words on the agenda, point 1, and I say, okay, that was your point. What do you need? And the next, whether it's 5 seconds or 5 minutes, only is focused on you getting what you need. If your tension is solved by just asking for an action or someone to take up a project, you don't need discussion probably. You just need to get that project on someone's plate and you solve their tension. So the starting point is always, how quickly can we solve your tension? And the majority of the tensions can be solved with an action or a project with someone or a bit of sharing information. Hey, great. We might just solve a lot. But maybe your need is different. You need input from everybody, or you need opinions. But then you need to ask for it. That's where it starts. It doesn't start with someone immediately jumping on it and trying to intervene. But if you ask for a discussion or something, if that's what you need, you're requesting information, that's great. You're requesting help. I need help to solve this. Who has ideas? So if you put something on the agenda, it is by your invitation that others start speaking. Not by your own invitation. It's like, hey, I like to... It's a subtle difference. You
So
can still get it, but you need to ask for it.
Right, so everyone basically, if no one is asking you a question, then don't say anything. What if you do feel like you have an input though? Like, what if that topic, that item, is specifically related to something that you're doing and you're able to resolve it very quickly, and you're not supposed to mention it then, or?
You could put it on the agenda yourself, because it sounds like you yourself have attention. You could enjoy your coffee while they solve it. Or you could say, does it help you if I offer you my solution? Don't intervene yet, but ask if they need it. Let's not assume we know it better than the person themselves, right? Because that could be behind it. It sounds like there's something weird between those two going on, how they solve it. I think I have a better idea, but instead of interrupting, trying to push my solution, I could just like, hey, can I share my solution? Would it help you? If they say, no, we've got this, okay, let it go. Maybe add it yourself. But if they needed you, they probably invite you in to add to it.
I just want to add to that. I think the thing that happened in those meetings, though, was it was often the first time we were discussing those tensions. So maybe in real life, you'd have had those conversations in the business already. Because when we kept adding tensions, it was because somebody would say, well, this is my tension. And then because someone wasn't allowed to speak, they'd go, oh, because I'd rephrase that, I'm going to add a tension in my words. So you probably, in real life, you probably would have had that conversation with a number of people and helped you shape what you were going to bring up in the meeting.
Can I offer you a perspective?
What would it help you if I offer you a perspective?
One thing is, this kind of well, I didn't get to speak, so I'm going to add another thing. It's a very common response to meeting these meeting formats for the same time. Like, that came up on the PCT, and Brian, who's been teaching that course for donkey's years, is like, yep, this often comes up with beginner groups, and it very, very rarely comes up with experienced groups. So it's just a problem that solves itself as you get used to actually how to interact with those formats. The other thing is that the core meetings are time boxed. So very often there'll be items on the agenda that we don't get round to, and it's the facilitator's job to make use of the time. So the facilitator might say, we've got half an hour, we've got 30 items on, I'm going to give one item each minute, or to say, we're going to do this one, we're going to give it 5 minutes. That's my understanding.
Yeah, there's a difference between tactical and governance. So the tactical meeting, it's the facilitator's job to get through every tension. So the facilitator defines the speed. If you have 30 agenda items in 30 minutes, if I was facilitator, I would not give space for discussion. There's no time. Then I much rather get to that we have an action that 3 people go and have a discussion afterwards and get through all 30 items, than to get through 10, not knowing what the other 20 are and have some discussion. That's not fair to everybody, right? It's not fair to say anybody can bring on any tension. I as facilitator make sure we get through it without you stressing about the time. And there are different ways to solve a tension, by just labeling an action that we do a discussion afterwards, or to do a discussion immediately, do an hour brainstorm. So the facilitator dictates the speed in the tactical meeting. It's great to have a facilitator that gets you through every tension. The facilitator's job is to prevent the meeting from being hijacked. How often do you have a meeting where you have an agenda up front, some topics to discuss, and then within the first 5 minutes someone says something and it derails the whole discussion? You might get through the first point, but definitely not the second point. How good was that meeting? I don't know. So that's the facilitator's role. Get through any tension within the time allowed in the tactical meeting. The governance meeting is the other way around. We'll take as much time as needed to get as far as we can, but stop by the time we have. We said that's why those administrative concerns are there. We say we have 1.5 hours. Let's go. Maybe we finish 10 proposals, maybe we finish a half one. Just use the speed, as much speed as we can get through those proposals. It doesn't make sense to rush it. We better have one proposal good than not so good. And it just means we need to schedule another meeting or do it differently. But yeah. Was that first point covered about intervening? If you're a facilitator soon, it's not bad to have discussions, right? Discussions are creative, that's where you're a team, stuff like that. But if the person that holds attention is distracted from it, then I would intervene. If the person that holds attention is actively engaged in that discussion, I can assume as facilitator it kind of helps them. After a minute or so I might just drop in, hey, what do you need? Yeah, this, okay, carry on. But if I see the person that brought in the tension being distracted, then I would definitely interfere. So wait, guys, wait. Does this actually solve your tension? You seem distracted. We're solving your tension. Is this discussion helping you? Yes or no? And that's what I, as facilitator, I can really see. If you would just be muted and just look at who's talking and where the tension and the energy is going. Can you notice who held that tension? Well, then you know if you intervene or not, right? That's your role as facilitator is to help that person that put something on the agenda to get what they need, to hold that space. That's all. And if discussion is the thing, go for it. But the good thing is to note if the person that held the tension is involved. If you do that, then probably you're on a good track as facilitator.
I just wanted to clarify, the tactical meetings aren't necessarily to define a solution for every tension, but just to be able to say, I have this tension, I can solve this tension if I speak to Nikki and Will, then we can go off and do that outside of the tactical meeting.
So what would you need from her?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but that, I guess we could figure out a solution between us to whatever our problem is, but does that have to be defined in the meeting, or is it just to connect the people that can solve it together?
So anything you do in a tactical meeting, you can do outside of the meeting. And you don't have to go first to the tactical meeting and say, well, we'll meet up afterwards. Okay. You can meet up to get something from another role anytime. Why you have a tactical meeting is for two reasons. One, it might be efficient to put a lot of tensions together and just get it through. And if you have a tension that involves multiple roles, you now not have to walk the floors, walk the desk to get that done or send endless emails. You have 1 hour together as a circle and just, I need to solve my tension if the builder builds a sports complex, it's the city planner thinks about where the sports complex can be built, and the building specialist is actually going to contribute what the soccer field is going to look like. Wow, 15 seconds, 3 roles address the whole sports complex in the pipeline. That's what you can do in a tactical meeting. At a very fast pace, involve a lot of different roles, if you need to. You could have walked each of those 3 independently or sent them an email, but hey, this might be efficient. The second reason is that you build that surface, you surface those data, you build up that radar. It's an hour a week or an hour, or whenever you take it to just see how the circle is doing. It's great to do that together. If you have good information systems, you can look at the metrics and stuff like that online or wherever you want. But as a circle together, to have some time to say, hey, how are we doing? And based on that information, step 2, 3, or 4 in the tactical meeting, put a lot of stuff on the agenda and solve that immediately. It's also valuable. That's the second reason to do a tactical meeting. A lot of the tensions you will address probably, or hopefully, come out of those initial steps. That's why I would do them. But in my organization, we do them monthly, roughly now. On the weekly basis, I'm secretary of one of the circles. I've just put the metrics on Slack. Say, hey, I've updated the metrics. Have a look. And you see all kind of tensions going left and right. And then once a month, we really sit together. But most of the time, it's just adherence, asynchronous, or whenever it's needed. And you all guys figure out. Start weekly. It's nice to have that written. Nice to practice it. You'll figure out if you like that weekly, keep doing that. Or do that less frequently. Was that your question, or was there?
Yeah, I think it was answered. Yeah.
What else? What else? There's maybe a good thing to know is so the facilitator and the secretary you just assigned, right? You handed them out. Officially, they're elected. And we'll do that some sort of election process tomorrow as well. If you want to be facilitator or secretary in one of the circles that will start, think about it. So the facilitator, and we'll definitely start with Daniel, Andrew, and Paulina, who went on the training and get you up to speed. But hopefully soon enough, it's you guys see what it is and how easy it is to do, and a broader shared group of facilitators and secretaries. So the facilitator is kind of the most stubborn, the most stubborn person in the group, or at least the person who can act in that way to keep the process running. The secretary is a good listener, is easier with the tools, so you can use an online tool. You don't slow down the capturing of outputs by using keyboard and a bit of online tooling. And is a good listener primarily. You can really listen to what you hear in an action or an outcome. And we also have a rep link. We have the lead link who carries work from the outside inwards and then thinks about if the setup is right. And you have a rep link which you elect as well, so it's directly. But you also have at your disposal a rep link which you can send out to solve a tension for you if you cannot solve it within your circle. It's a kind of safe fail mechanism. So we elect that as well. So whenever you feel that your lead link is screwing up or whatever happens that you cannot solve it in your circle, hey, you have a rep link for that. That's good. Yeah, another thing I thought about, in tactical meetings, we don't solve actual stuff. You can put an action to it, but hey, it isn't solved. It's rarely that in meetings things really happen, right? You sit around the table, it's distracted from reality. So you can call out actions. You can even label the end state. I want the project with the outcome, this issue is solved. Also, didn't happen yet. So that's what we do in tactical. We only make sure that after the meeting, we can go and do work again.
I'm just wondering what happens in a situation where the only way I can think of solving my tension is Andrew doing something for me, as in an action on Andrew, and he doesn't want to. let's say it's in a grey area between like what his role is and what it isn't, and let's say he doesn't want to, and I don't think I can solve my tension in any other way. How do we?
We have that in the simulation.
Governance.
Yeah, well, what did you have in the simulation? What happened?
Oh, okay. So
Let's take this case, because everybody
So
knows the
I was city planner. Will was one of the builders, and in round 1, Will refused. Was it round 2? Will refused to build a particular building, and he wanted to build a building that I had assigned to someone else,
Naughty.
which is excellent.
Excellent. Great case. Yes.
So initially, should I talk you through it? Or?
Yeah. So what happened? How did you solve it? Did you leave it at that? And say,
Well, I found more grown-up member of the team. Rowan and Will agreed to swap. And then in the objection round, we actually studied the rules and realised that it was actually. Oh God, I have to explain it. I think ultimately we sort of realised that Will was actually accountable to deliver, I guess, what I gave him to deliver. So really, he should have just.
Yeah, interesting, right? So yeah, the game is set up in a bit of like how you do software development. You have a product owner who defines the backlog and the priorities, and then you have coders who just build code based on the order the product owner set. The city planner defines which buildings to make, and then the builder just makes them as they like. And the builder cannot interfere with the prioritization, and the city planner cannot interfere with the building.
So that was the thing. I think you wanted creativity, but interpreted creativity as what to build, i.e. hospital, theatre, school. Whereas I think the actual case was that it was, the shape.
Yeah. So here's the thing. And that's why I think that we will get to that last option on the tactical card. The starting point with Holacracy is if I ask something, it's like, hey, build a church. If it fits your role as builder, you accept it by default. You cannot refuse it. If something fits your role, you have accepted it. So as facilitator, if you would go out, hey, build a church. I don't say, do you like that? Do you want it? I say, does it fit your role? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you've accepted it. It's yours. That's how easy you can get. It's like if you look at in the Netherlands, gardens are nicely squared off. I don't know if you look at from the top floor of your house into the gardens, if you see all those neat little separated gardens. That's a bit what the Holacracy roles are. It makes it very easy to toss something in a role. If you point nicely, if it's in that role, if it fits the role, slam dunk, it's theirs. Hey, but now it's theirs, now it's in their garden, I have nothing to say about it.
I mean, that person can then say that, for example, they don't have capacity to fulfill all the accountabilities in their role, but then that becomes something that's dealt with either in governance or by the lead link to figure out whether we should hire another person to share in these roles, responsibilities, or such like.
Ultimately, it comes down to having like a grown-up conversation. It's really important for you to have this thing actually built. You know, as Brian says, don't rely on hope and blame. Well, you promised to do it, so I'm just going to sit here and wait for you not to do it, and then I can blame you. But rather be like, actually, for the circle, the most important thing we do is this church. So how are you getting on with that? Can I help you? Is there anything I can do?
Exactly. So, and this is how you hopefully see a few different rules of the game starting to play out. Hey, you have attention. You can yourself name the project, the outcome, what would make you happy. If it fits the role, by default, it's on their project list. They cannot. That's actually in a lot of meetings when people say, no, I cannot do that. It's because their list is already full. That's weird, right? That the last thing someone asks you, you decide that is the least important. Typically, it's the other way around, that the last things being asked are the more relevant stuff. So let's change that around. You can ask everything, and if it fits the role, you accept it. Very easy to get it to a role. But then it's in their garden. They can define themselves where it fits on their project list. Cool. And the project board is transparent, you can see it at any time, and every week you do a tactical meeting, you get an update on how far they got. So within 5 seconds you have it on their project list, and you know a week later you will get an update. It's also what, right? If you then see that, I don't know how urgent this project is, but let's assume it's not that urgent. So you see it on this project list in the future bucket, so not yet this week. So in the next tactical meeting, you might just ask, hey, any update? No time. Okay. The next week I ask again, no update. Okay, now I get attention about it, that it remains at the bottom of his list. Awesome. So now we can talk priorities. Andrew, can you tell me why it's less relevant for you? And let me pitch you my idea. Why would I need this sooner?
Because the park is more important to the city than the church.
He wants a sauna.
Yeah.
Now I get that. So he's working on a park with a sauna. Okay, can we get it? Thanks. Any projection when you think it's going to be ready? If you have to, it's not a deadline by the way, but a projection. When would your best estimate be?
In about 3 weeks.
3 weeks? Oh, okay, thanks. Next week, another tactical meeting. What's your latest projection?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Shit, okay. Fine. Can we talk about this again? I'm waiting for this, and this. I need it in 2 weeks and then I can move on. Would it work for you to do it in 2 weeks?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Next projection 2 weeks?
Sure.
Okay. Tomorrow I will ask you again. And then the day after tomorrow again. Because now this project gets so important, I might ask for that projection. Or can you let me know when you change projections?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, that's actually a pretty cool thing, because he doesn't have to do that, but that's nice. Let's steer dynamically. Let's know when you expect stuff and act based on it. If he keeps saying 2 weeks, and I can't convince him, then finally there's the lead link who can say, well, for the circle as a whole, the park and the sauna is much more important than my church, so keep doing as you go, and I have to follow his judgment. Because the lead link, only as a last resort, can define priorities as a circle. So if we get stuck on church versus sauna, church versus sauna, church versus sauna, then let the lead link decide, well, for the city as a whole, where are we going? Sauna above church. Okay, there we go. Depending on who is lead link, we'll make different priorities here. So hopefully, instead of deadlines and getting stuck on getting the project to one, it makes it easy to move forward. And based on information and based on meaningful discussions, you can move this stuff forward. So that's how the tactical meeting and addressing tensions, hopefully, if you get through the outcome, you can hopefully move forward pretty quickly. And this was quite an exaggerated case in weeks and weeks of updates and no updates and stuff like that. Typically it solves a lot when it gets to someone's project list, they know they're accountable, and they just get their stuff done. Let's start with trusting each other, then when asked something it fits a role, that they will do their best to prioritize in the best way and get it done.
If at the time that someone's trying to put a project onto your project list and you know already that your project list is full to capacity, there's loads of things on there that you need to get done really quickly, urgently in the next week or so, and their project is something that they want in the next week, can you say at that point, because you know you have to kind of automatically accept it because it fits in your role, you say, I know this should be my role, but unless I cancel this, this and this, which is actually very important, which will affect this person's role and that person's role, I can't do this. Can you, like, at that point, I know it should be mine, but I need to tell the lead link that I have to go to someone else, or I'll do it, but you need to understand that it means that these other projects on my list are going to have to be pulled back and it's going to affect other people's roles. You know, what if you really are to that point where, you know, your project is that full, can you then just say, can't do it, or...
So, who's more tense?
So
at the moment, who sounds more to have attention?
Yeah, I have attention because of what's been asked of me.
Not my attention.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So it's like, you just got to do it. So then I would add attention to the project list.
Nobody forces you to work more hours than you want to,
Yeah.
at least in my organization. But my only tension was, I don't know what my tension was, by the way, but
Well, you've got one.
if my tension is solved, that it is on your list, and I trust, look at how motivated she sounds, right? The way you sound already is like, I know you're busy, but you will make the right choices. Good luck. If my tension was, I need to get this done within 2 weeks, I probably add, I have 2 things I need to solve this tension. I want to get that project on your list, done. Let's interact a bit. When do you think it's possible to deliver that? Because else my tension is not solved. But it depends a bit. If it's not my tension, it's yours. And you might solve this tension. If you have a tension that you have so much to do and your projection is by Christmas, what would you do?
Put it on the agenda.
Yeah. And who can help? Who has had a role that you say, like, hey, wait, I can do something for people who have too much to do? Anyone potentially? Anybody can chip in and say, or you ask to lead link. Hey, lead link, this role has worked for 2 people. Can you assign someone else to it? Split it up. Let's put 4 people in that role. Let's get going. This is so important with so much pressure on it. The lead link might just decide to put more people in it. And if the lead link doesn't want to do that, I would suggest just prioritize harder. Just make clear where the tensions are. So I'll work till, this is what I expect to get done in the next 2 weeks. Guys, so all you know. Not your tension, you have done the best you could. If everybody else has tension about it, go to the lead link and ask for more people in that role, more resources or whatever is needed. So that's how, based on tensions, you can see where you can find leverage, where you can find help. But let's start with making work transparent and getting stuff to the role that is currently accountable. Then we'll see how it goes. You never know how these things play out at the start.
I guess it's something that came up in the training as well. How does that relate to performance? So if my tension is, and we actually had that in New Amsterdam now, that Pips wasn't happy with my performance as a, what was I doing again? Quality person. So how do you use Holacracy to, express you not being satisfied with a particular role's fulfilling its purpose?
Yeah, so here at the bottom is getting fired. Let's go that. What's the smallest tension that was addressed to you?
There are some buildings that clearly don't look quality-wise, and I still approve them. And still, like those people's tension. From my perspective, they are cool buildings. Like they're unusual, they're original, they have angles, but she doesn't like them.
Some buildings in a single round. All right. How do we get from here to there, or hopefully not at all? I've seen companies go from here to there, right? That there are small tensions, which in itself are kind of small and petty. You don't fire a person because there are 3 buildings, creative and process, right?
Well, depends what impact that has in the company.
Okay. If it's like
if it's like half of the company's budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we've probably done something wrong before here. That stuff like that could easily happen. That's a bit. If there's a single simple tension, hopefully Holacracy allows you to address that very early on with a very simple action. And one action, what's an operational action that could solve this? Check the last 3 buildings? Or give feedback on what. And then let's make the solution small. Instead of think about firing or not firing or taking
of
people
course.
in or out of roles.
I'm just wondering, is a tactical meeting a place at all to say that, to share that information, or would you just only do it in one-on-one? Like, is it designed to deal with that kind of like, I'm actually not entirely sure I agree with the way you're fulfilling your role, which is going to come up.
Yeah. And hopefully you're all going to give that to each other. And the lead link is explicitly accountable for assigning people to roles and monitoring, I think it's called role fit. And the lead link is going to have a look like, is there a good match between the roles and the people that fill those roles? Or can I give feedback about that? It's a bit boring to only leave that with the lead link. If you're a builder and that quality role keeps not approving your buildings, I hope the two of you are going to give each other feedback instead of that you wait leading to do that. Leading was, we heard the meetings, we're not doing leading stuff anyway during those 7 minutes, so please give direct feedback to each other and take a step forward. Make it not that much backward looking, but more forward looking. And then you solve it with an action. Check my latest building, give me feedback on how I could have done this specific building better and learn from that. Or maybe change it in governance. Maybe if these things keep reappearing, there might be something unclear about what our roles are actually accountable for. If I keep making those really creative buildings, but they keep being quality disapproved, hey, let's solve that on the governance level, because if we make clear within which restrictions I need to work as builder, I can use my creativity within that space instead of outside and being kicked back all the time, right? And let's make a sustainable solution. And maybe I figure out that my role is not builder. I'm much better at other stuff, not at this builder stuff. I get back that role.
So how is the process of firing someone dealt with in Holacracy? Is it just going through all these stages?
Can I raise an administrative concern just to understand, because we're changing the agenda in response to the needs that are coming up, but I'm aware that we've kind of slipped and changed, and I think it would be good to clarify for everybody what the timings are for the rest of the day so that people can make a decision about whether they want to be here for the rest of the session or not.
So I like this Q&A to understand those weird bits and pieces of how Holacracy interacts. Till what time do we have in the day itself?
Well, I mean, we're scheduled until 5:30.
2 hours.
Yeah, great. But the idea was that we were only going to need everyone until 1:30. So I think some people were expecting to have this afternoon free and maybe have urgent client work. I know that obviously we've lost Joe and Mike are going to do that already.
I would say let's do this for about the 15 minutes because we're getting to some interesting stuff. And then it's 4. Who likes then from 4 till 5:30 some more depth into the facilitator role and the leading role, to explore a bit what that role is accountable for, and so leave it voluntary for those people to do that for 1.5 hours. That works for me as well to do that in a smaller group than keep shouting out loud. So you know till 4, and then whoever stays behind do some depth leading facilitating things. So the fun thing for me with Holacracy is that it's so weird that we built up those backpacks with tensions up to a point those backpacks are so heavy they disrupt our normal work, and then we get to firing someone. If we're able to address every single tension one by one, that's very easy. So a lot of stuff with Holacracy is dealt much earlier with, much easier. Still, we might not be the perfect fit with the organization, with the roles we fit. A lot of that is solved by, if you have 10 roles, give back the role you're least qualified for, you have least fun with, you don't like, just give it back. Have the leading figure out what to do. Probably something new will appear. If you find yourself looking out the window for half of the days, you might, how can you address that? Then you can either search for more work. You now know the leadlings are accountable for that, so you just need 3 or 4 conversations, you know where to find it. You're not tied to a single manager anymore, so you'll find your way around to find your roles. If you're really not fit with the organization, you know a lot sooner than anybody else. So still people leave with Holacracy within organizations. But it's much more on their own initiative than on the manager or the boss's initiatives. If you notice that you get tensions which you don't like to solve, you have roles which you don't like, or you're not good at, or you work with people you don't have fun with, or if you try to swap a few circles or a few roles, it still doesn't feel right, you know much better than anybody else in the organization. You hear it from your colleagues. I even had an organization that's stopped to exist after 6 months with Holacracy.
Adopted to get one.
They were just with 4 of them. But the tensions kept adding up of that their business model didn't add up. The income they made versus the time they spent with the 4 of them. And instead of carrying on and just having that in their backpack and doing all that hard work, it became so clear that had no reason to exist as an organization. Hey, the best thing was to have a party and say goodbye. Yeah. Weird example, but for me it's in the spirit of solving your tensions very early on, solving them one by one. And you yourself know best if you're fit here or not. Not your manager, whatever happens when you get to this point. So you see a lot of more natural stuff happening.
Did you have a statistic around percentages of people that end up leaving after the implementation of Holacracy?
There is one famous statistic from Zappos. I don't know if you heard that. Zappos is the biggest organization that has implemented Holacracy so far. And they are an e-commerce shoe retailer. They are kind of the weird company in Las Vegas anyway, already before Holacracy. They
reminds me of someone.
They made at a point in time an announcement halfway through the implementation that said, if you don't like the way we're going with Holacracy and with Teal, here is 4 months of pay if you leave now. And I think 13 to 18% of the people took that leave.
13 to 18,
yeah. Which for me is quite low, even if it were pure numbers. But the majority in those numbers were people that were a couple with young kids. If you get 8 months of salary together, how beautiful Teal or Holacracy is, you take it. And then at least it was a choice, right? Also, I've done a lot of lean transformations. Lean is the Toyota efficiency quality work. We saw a quarter of the managers leave because we changed the way managers had to operate those machines, especially in insurance and bank environments. Managers could just run from meeting to meeting, had no idea what their process was. And suddenly they needed to have control over the process, work with daily stand-ups, stand up in front of their teams. Ooh, a quarter of the managers, they didn't like it. So for me, 13 to 18%, and then it's even probably below 10% of people personally choosing that's not that, hey, that's actually a fine number. If you make a purposeful choice if this is yours or not.
I think in one of the articles I read, out of the people that did leave, they had a survey to ask why they leave, and I think it was only 8% was because of Holacracy. The rest, it was all because of other reasons, like student money.
And it's 1 in 12, right? That's not.
Interesting. Thank you, Jason.
And I'm not going to label what kind of personalities that are and stuff like that. Yeah, I think Holacracy might give everybody a bit of a mirror on how they work. How they tend to interact with people at work, and you might like or dislike that mirror at points in time. And
What did you dislike about it when you first adopted it in your company?
So we adopted. So my journey with Holacracy has been a bit weird. I learned about Holacracy. And I was still at McKinsey. I was at the leadership development venture of McKinsey. So that are all those kind of spiritual people who do leadership and training and coaching work. We tried to implement it there and we failed within 3 months for 2 reasons. One is not enough intensity in the process, and we did a tactical meeting every month. So every month, and we did it by phone. So every month on a Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. we came on the phone. And it was like, wait, what are we going to do? And after 60 minutes, we still had no clue what we were doing, and that repeated itself. So only when you have a good, frequent meeting, you build on top of your learning. If you do it only monthly, you kind of figure out the wheel every time you start again. You need a bit of intensity to get started into it. That's what we did wrong. And the second thing is the impersonal part of Holacracy. And, it's all about roles. It's solving tension by tension. If you want to shout and be angry, the facilitator asks, okay, did you get what you need? Okay, let's move on to the next point. If you want to shout for it, that's the space you need. Okay, shout, okay, done, let's go. The emotional part is explicitly not addressed in Holacracy. And that's hard in the beginning. that was a tough journey to deal with, to find a space where that emotional part can be addressed.
So how did you do it?
Make it explicit. When you're in a tactical meeting or in a governance meeting, to either get work done, to align that as soon as that meeting is over, you can do fun stuff again, and make that tactical meeting as clean and boring as possible, so it's as fast as possible over. Those meetings are never a great place to be. If you do the tactical meeting in 30 minutes, and then take 30 minutes at the coffee machine to interact and have fun, that's probably a lot better use of your time than 1 hour in a meeting which you try to make fun.
Do you think that's part of its success, is the fact that it's actually pretty boring and rigid?
Yeah. As soon as you recognize that, and we used to have team meetings that had both a purpose of aligning on work and being collectively as a team together and have a bit of fun, right? But it's hard to achieve both. Well, actually splits it out. Boring meetings get that stuff done quickly. But then you need to create that space again outside of the tactical meetings. And you can put points on the tactical meetings to share how you feel or to share the funnest thing. You can all do that. Great. If that solves your tension, awesome. But you can also create just much more meaningful moments like you would do as a tribe of people outside of the roles you fill.
It's a slightly weird thing because it's dehumanizing in order to be rehumanizing. You know, there's that sort of stripping out of the humanity from the organization, because we see that the organization is just a collection of roles. This is the diagram. You've heard about this one before.
Have you seen it? Yeah.
Oh, they have. I was watching me talking about it in a presentation only yesterday, so I definitely discussed it. But you rediscover the kind of human connection that gets sort of poured all around that. And actually, one of the things that, like, certainly I have found with the contact that I've had is through that separation, through the depersonalization of the meetings and the work, you suddenly see, actually, my humanity is not bounded by the fact that, you know, like I'm in this box of a role, because this box of a role is just something else. And actually, there's unlimited space for me to spread out with my, like, compassion and connection with other people. And it's a bit of a journey to go on, but it actually can lead to, you know, like a richer experience and preserving the kind of atmosphere that we have as a company, you know, by holding the tribal value that we have around compassion alongside, say, the organizational value that we have about tangible impact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was wondering, Koen, do you see, based on experience, any other space within the meetings themselves to allow kind of the personal or the human, other than the check-in and the check-out? Is it possible, is it advisable to try to implement practices? I've heard of some of them where people would sound the gong, where, you know, for example, somebody's TV speaking from their ego. How do you look at this? Just explicitly implement stuff that introduces the human into the stiff process?
Yeah. I think you can definitely do that. If I raise attention and
it makes me cry.
It makes you cry.
Yeah.
Or I have attention that I really need work done. I'm desperate to get this project uploaded. If it, without changing my face, like, hey, I need this project, and you put it on your project board, okay, thank you, let's move on. I should make a convincing case. I could put all my emotion in it to make clear how important it is to me. And why not?
Pitching your project, injecting your emotions, particularly when, you know, we've got a lot of emotions during the process.
Is this a question that we could cover in our chat?
Because we have 1 minute.
Because it's 1 minute.
Take it off, like, yeah.
Because this is exactly what you will discover over the next months. Where do you find those places? Either if you do that in the organization space, within the tactical and the governance meetings, or is that much more fun when you drop your roles and have a beer together, and much more the personal connection, like when you feel you're together as a tribe in that sense. But yeah, it's not as clean cut as you see it here. So, yeah, let's explore how to integrate that. I want to give you over the next months an experience of pure holacracy. Let's figure out what that is and how much you can leverage that, and then we'll see what we can add on top of it. And what you put on the agenda is yours. If there's only mechanical stuff on it, great. If that solves your tensions, go for it. If you take in the tactical meeting, your check-in can be check, 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 okay, let's go. Or it can be, yeah, real meaningful personal stories of what's on your mind and you want to share it. Nowhere it's written that a check-in has to be done within a minute. If it's your way to run the tactical meeting to do a half-hour check-in of the hour you have together, awesome.
I guess the reaction round is also designed in a way that you are allowed to potentially speak.
Yeah, shall we let people go and move on to the next section? So give people 5 minutes, and then it would be really helpful if Will, Jason, Roan, and Ash did stay, and anybody else who wants to stay as well. I mean, Green, you might want to stay.
You can use. And the third thing is also for the facilitator, but then more on the governance level. How do you do that objection testing? And we covered a bit about it. What's more relevant? Where do you guys say, hey, that's...
Where do people usually fall down?
The governance objection testing is tough.
Yeah, that would be the thing I was most worried about. Anyway.
We struggled with in our group. We didn't know which was where you bring up the role, the individual associated parts versus the role and the accountability.
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's start with that, with governance. Let's do some objection testing. And then if we have time left, we do one of those one or twos. The way I want to do it is within the Lego game. I also brought another simulation, but by the time we cover those rules or what they are about, we're half an hour in. So I much rather. So why don't all of you who are facilitators? I will raise. So we take a proposal. I will raise an objection. And then you guys check which of the questions you will ask to get my objection off the table as soon as possible, or you say it's a valid objection.
Okay.
So you'll be 6 facilitators simultaneously. We'll do some objection testing.
Can I just ask something very quickly? Like the people in the room, the majority of the people that have had the training are facilitators, and the other people who haven't had training are leaving. So.
Leading training would be more helpful than facilitator training because we have pre-trained facilitators.
Because you guys are going to be doing that and then teaching other people how to do that later on, right?
Yeah.
You still get confused sometimes, but like
Yeah,
stuff is going on.
But leading training might be really helpful. Like for example, one of the big realizations in your team over there was this concept of resourcing decisions being an operational decision.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that would save a lot of hassle if the links know that they have that's part of their exercise. Jason's looking really like I've just spoken some mystical words of magic. So it would be helpful if they know that these are the kind of things that they can solve operationally rather than waiting for governance.
Cool.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah. Awesome. And objection testing we'll get to soon. Let's turn on to the TV. You have this maybe remote control, I guess.
We need to do more effort tomorrow.
No.
There's a sense of dissatisfaction and we don't know who won.
Yeah, I'm there. Are you there? Satisfied?
No! This group to win.
Yeah, their structures.
Did you see us?
Oh, there you go. He's clean objective. This part, as a lead link, I'd like to replace this guy with someone else.
I think you'll find that Jason's group. They had great coaches.
Our group is the best working culture, though. Isn't that what matters?
Can you specify working culture? I'm trying to double my screen also. Can you read Dutch already? There we go. process. So this was actually what we were doing. This is the glass rock tool, the tool you will be using. So you'll see the circles and the roles. Here were the construction projects in each of the cities. Oh yeah, I made those empty. I haven't put everything in. Here you see, for example, the building specialist, the supplier, the quality, the builder, all the roles you are familiar with. So there also is the leading role. And this is the page you typically get when you pull up any of the roles. Every role has a circle, has a page that says what's the name of the role, who fills it, what's the purpose, the domains, and accountabilities. So also for the lead link, so that's easy. So what I want to do is just tackle each of the accountabilities, just like it is a role. If you would be accountable for, the easiest one is, the shortest one, is defining metrics for the circle. What do? This is your accountability. What would I see you doing?
Like tracking, yeah, putting in tools to help track metrics across the team.
Yeah. So the easy thing for you as lead link is you only have to define them.
You don't have to put in the...
You don't have to put in the hard work and sweat to get the tools and stuff like that included.
Unless you sign yourself.
So that's
example, right?
Yeah, except if you have a business intelligence role or an analyst or whatever role you need to get the tools and stuff like that. So if you look at the sheet we used, this is the only thing you do. I think I can put it up here as well. I think I put it fully in there. Yeah, cool. So we had 4 metrics. These were our metrics. For the builder, the total number of completed and not approved constructions in our city. For the city planner, the total number of completed and quality approved constructions. For quality, the number of not approved buildings in this round. And for supply, the supply of construction materials estimated to the next decimal. As a lead link, you're accountable to making visible, at least in this way, with metrics that can we measure if you're going in the right direction. This could just be 4 metrics that do that for you as a circle. So if you know that as lead link, and what was the purpose of the circle? Our purpose is build our city with a focus on nature, security, and convenience.
Can you increase the font size?
Better?
Yeah.
Can we increase it more?
Yeah, increasing it more would be good.
So the purpose of the circle is build our city with a focus on nature, security, and convenience. How do we want to measure if we're going in the right direction? That's what, yeah.
Ask a suggestion.
Yeah.
Crime and crime security or square footage of green space.
Yeah. And those kind of measurements you could take and know, okay, you're kind of getting there. And, if you look at our, now I need to figure out how I fit it on the screen. These metrics and the supply of construction materials could be a useful metrics. And then as lead link, you know that if this number is high enough, you know we can keep on building. That's a good measure probably. If this number is above 100, you can probably last for another 2 rounds or so, or at least another round. The quality metrics, the number of not approved buildings in this round, probably gives you a good number on are we really doing quality work. So this is your role as lead link. Can you come up with metrics that we know the circle is going in the right direction? And the stuff you mentioned, you could easily add to it. That's your role as lead link. And you're defining, that's accountability, defining metrics. If you would look at these metrics every week and not do anything else in the circle, do you have an idea you're going in the right direction? That's where you want to get to. So we're creating, hopefully with this, a bit of visibility We're not putting a target on it. We don't say we need at least 5 completed buildings every round. We're just putting the information out. That's accountability. That's,
There's an interesting point, I don't know if I'm skipping steps, but like an interesting point about the lead link is that you can't add responsibilities to the lead link. That's forbidden in the Constitution. You can delegate responsibilities from the lead link to another role. So you could eventually end up with an empty lead link role, but you can't add, because that way it stops the lead link from becoming a kind of manager role that holds all of the responsibilities.
Sorry, you mean no one can add responsibilities to a lead?
Correct. It cannot be modified in a way that adds responsibilities to it.
Okay.
What you can do is create another role, like, let's say you had...
like we had with the city planner, right? One of your establishing priorities and strategies for the circle, the city planner was also doing that, right? The city planner was prioritizing the projects the builders were working on the next round. So in that way it's about delegated away from the lead link. That's another role.
So you can't answer those 6 buildings, that's fixed.
Yeah, you can only remove from them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of protection mechanism. I sometimes find it necessary, but it's probably good.
But then again, they do say that you, like, living as a trash collector, as in like they end up dealing with everything that's not being dealt with in the sector. So how does that relate to the fact that you cannot add accountabilities?
Yeah, so that's a good one. In the Constitution, it's written that as let's take one step back. I'll move.
Because that kind of sounds like mutually exclusive, right?
And so as a lead link, you end up having to deal with the stuff that nobody else is dealing with, but you can't explicitly say, okay, I'm dealing with this stuff, so I'm going to add it to my lead link role. If you want to explicitly be dealing with it, you have to create another role and assign it to yourself.
Yeah, but as a lead link, you are supposed to do the stuff that's falling by the wayside, so it's not being done.
But it's not an explicit accountability.
But if you pick it up, say the kitchen's dirty all the time, you can't add clean the kitchen to the lead link role. What you can do is say we need a kitchen cleaner.
Okay.
And then you can take it on.
Let's tie it back to the accountabilities again. So we talked about defining metrics for the circle. And that's one accountability you have as lead. The other one is structuring the governance of the circle to enact its purpose and accountabilities. If I would do that visually, then I'll say, well, this is your circle. The circle has a purpose and a set of accountabilities. And if that's being given to the circle from the outside. As a circle, you don't define your own purpose and accountabilities, just like you don't do that for your role, but that's set by the broader organization. So, as a circle, the boundary of your circle is defined by the purpose and accountabilities of that circle. What you do with this accountabilities is that you say, well, let me define roles within that circle that make their contribution to this larger purpose. And if I do this accountability well, if I can come up with a set of roles, then hopefully the space in between the roles is kind of small. But hey, there are circles that will always be space in between circles. It's quite hard, fortunately, by definition of a circle, but I could come up with quite a lot of roles that fill up the space we're accountable for as a circle. And if I do this properly, nothing falls between the cracks. And I as leading have very little to do. In that role as leading, at least. Now something happens. There's governance, hey, this space, and someone asks for this. No one is accountable within the circle, but the circle is accountable. So it fits in the circle. We put it in the garden of the circle, and then, hey, can we put it with one of the roles? No? Okay, it falls in between. Then the Constitution says the lead link is accountable, and the lead link is always referred to as the beginning of the circle. So by default the lead link accepts. Because it fits the purpose of the lead link, so that's equal to the purpose of the circle. And nobody else is accountable for it. So hey, lead link, good luck. So as lead link, what you typically do is you either solve it, you do it, or you say, well, I'm actually accountable for structuring the governance of the circle. If that stuff is there, it apparently makes sense to create a role right there, because we kind of missed it. Okay, I propose in governance that we create this role. I assign someone as lead link. Hey, and then they can take on this project. So that's your role as lead link. And because these boundaries keep changing, and it's dynamic governance, it's your role to come up with a structure where work happens within the roles. That's what you do with this accountability. Every now and then you look at, you could almost make a game plan. You can say, well, if I look at the circle, how are we set up on the field? Do we have the right roles and the right composition that we can win our match? If you do that every month, I just have to look at each of the roles, what are they accountable for? Can I really see an easy game play out? Or if I listen to the tensions being solved in a tactical meeting, is that the best way we can do that as a circle? If you have tensions about it, you're working on this accountability, trying to solve that. You're structuring the governance in a way that you enact the purpose and accountability of that circle in the easiest way. So that's what we expect from a lead link, that they now and then look at the circle. If this is what we're accountable for, do we have the easiest composition to get the work done? And then it wouldn't be a real firefighting mode, but it's more like, hey, wait, there something drops through the cracks. I can solve it, I can do it, but I much rather create the governance, the role, so that in all future instances it's taken care of by a role.
Can I ask in terms of, so if you see a piece of work that needs doing, can you go directly to someone who you'd like to do it rather than bringing it to a general meeting and get everybody putting their hands up if we want to do stuff?
So, that's good. We're moving naturally from accountability to accountability. It sounds like that's the first one. And the first accountability, you are accountable for assigning partners to the service roles. So if you've done this accountability, you've created
Partners
those.
is the people, right?
Partners is the people, yeah. If you've created the roles, now you need to find people and assign them to the roles. And that's that first accountability. So you assign the people to the circles and to the roles in the circle. You're accountable for monitoring the fit, offering feedback to enhance fit, and reassigning roles to other people when useful for enhancing fit. Now you're accountable. You can autocratically decide to do that spot on. You don't even have to talk to people if you want. It's kind of weird to do that.
I always thought that assigning people to the circles roles is kind of an invitation rather than forcing people into a role, because they can always quit right away.
So, given that they can quit at any time, you might just assign them. If I have a role, and it was created in the governance meeting, and it's so clear that you will take it on, why should I talk about it? Why should I raise it in the meeting? And just assign it. It's done. And what's the easiest way to get this done? I wouldn't say you should do that all the time, but if it's so clear who fulfills it, assign it.
And it's assigned rather than accepted.
So by default you accept it, and by default you can give it back 5 minutes later if you don't like it.
Can I ask, what if that person is fine to accept it, but in the wider circle there are other people that have a personal tension that they wanted to undertake that particular role? Did they basically create that tension in a tactical meeting or governance meeting, even if it's not specifically role related, it's more about personal stuff? Because this is like the soft skills that managers bring in. Just interested to see where that kind of fits in.
So exactly, so the way you do this accountability, that's your personal style. If it fits you, much rather to just click it in the software system and everybody gets an email and that works for the circle, fine. If you love to do that through one-on-one conversations, or you like to do this through interviewing people, You could do the whole interview process as leading. If you want to find that one person that has that unique skills to fill a certain role, be my guest. So the way you fill this accountability, it's fully up to you how you do that. That's one. But that's with any role. So with anyone that has attention, I always ask, hey, if you have attention about who fills a certain role, you want a decision on getting a role change, who is accountable? Who is accountable for assigning people to roles? Okay. Give the attention to the lead link. You can pitch your idea. You say, hey, lead link, I also want to fill that role. Or I think that person better fills the role. Let's see it again as gardens. This is the garden of the lead link. The lead link can make the decisions about assigning roles. Give them all the input, but don't try to interfere with their garden. It's their decision.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I think that would be quite a difficult thing for people to snap out of, because we've gone from lots of people being involved and lots of decisions to this, which, yeah, I mean, depending on the style, like some people would definitely talk to people and smooth things out.
You actually have power to do something as opposed to like weeks on weeks worth of advice per
you can get action quicker, but then maybe like a massive fallout of just people feeling really demotivated if they don't feel like hurt by the lead link.
Yeah. So I guess that comes back to the first thing you said, which was about your style. So as lead link, you need to, I guess we need to learn how to implement stuff in a way that.
And this is the reason why I felt it was important to have lead links who are going to be able to balance the sort of broad view of the company and what's happening with the team, rather than just having a lottery and random people get selected as lead links. So yeah, there is a responsibility there, I think.
So this is for me the amazing thing about Holacracy. Holacracy creates autocratic leadership. If you have a role, if you're accountable, you alone can just make the decisions. It's your kingdom, just decide. If you know the lead link alone can him herself just decide who assigns the roles. If you know that that is the default, I hardly see lead links doing that. But by knowing who is accountable, who independently can make the decision, you much faster turn to an advice process where you need it, but only where you need it. If you know as lead link, I can make the decision, then it's much safer to go and ask for advice. The decision remains with me, but I can ask for advice. It's my decision. And I will stand up for the consequences. If I do straight role assignments, I probably get a lot more information and input that I can do better role assignments in the future. And if you don't, let that lead link go. In the sense that leave your roles in that circle and let them figure it out alone. If he doesn't act on the feedback. Well, hey, that's
just sort of mention, are you getting along at the right speed you need to? Like, I have a couple of questions, but I can leave them.
Yeah, so we have just short of an hour. We want to do the lead link roles. I think this is the most, you see it almost in the amount of text, the toughest and longest one. So let's get this one clear, and then yeah.
One thing, like, so accountabilities are expectations that people have of the role, like other people have of the role, but they're not domains. So does that mean that other people can also assign partners to the circle's roles, other than the lead links?
Domain role assignments. Yeah, it's not safe enough that everybody just assigns everybody.
Okay, cool.
This is a domain of the lead link.
But defining metrics, anyone else can define.
You can remove domains if you wanted to, right? Could I remove my domain?
Of role assignments?
Just out of interest.
I've never had someone try it in GrantTree. I don't know if the software tool allows it, but hey, you can take stuff away. I have seen, you can create a policy. I know an organization that once did a policy that says the lead link can assign people in roles, and everybody can give back. But to take people out of that role, also the rep link needs to agree with that. The rep link, the other elected role in the circle. So it's not up to one person in one role to take people out of their roles. There needs to be a second person who agrees with that. I've never had the tension that I saw lead links abusing this power, but if you have, that could be a policy to add. If you don't trust lead links to make good role decisions, I don't know if you need them as lead links in the first place, but hey, then you might add some policy like that.
So, question, I'm sorry that I'm kind of bringing in like the testing objections here, but like I want to know how that kind of works together. So I know that, so role assignments is, you know, the lead link's domain, but what if someone were to make a proposal using, like through in a governance meeting, and that they want to perhaps reassign someone or have themselves reassigned? Is that a governance meeting?
It's not by a governance output.
It's tactical. So
It's
that was one of the big things in Ash's team, which was resourcing versus governance. So
Okay.
resourcing is not governance. So assigning people to roles is not governance. That can be done any time by the lead link.
This one might
outside of the governance meeting.
small.
In the governance meeting, you just work on the role structure. You don't work on who is doing what role.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, exactly. This is typically the split. So if you look at a role has a purpose that's translated into accountabilities. Accountabilities you can translate into projects with an end state. And you cannot do projects, you can only do actions. This is the relation between purpose and actual work.
Right. So the lead link can only assign,
Yeah.
but they also create roles.
No,
Everyone can.
anyone can.
Anyone can create roles.
Through the governance process.
Okay, but the assignment is within
Yeah.
the, okay.
Operational space.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. That is a very good distinction. So changing roles, purpose, accountabilities and domains and policies happens in governance. Once you have that, in operational space you can create projects, actions, whatever you want. This is the clear separation. And in that sense, the lead link role is just a role with just a set of accountabilities. So if you're accountable for assigning partners to the circle's roles, you can do whatever you want till you hit a policy that is. So as soon as we put an expectation on people that they are accountable for something, we expect that they do. And that the default is you make your own decisions until the point you hit a line on the road, a policy or whatever it is.
What mechanism, so say we're obviously thinking of the super circle purpose, that's then back down to the lead link. The lead link is creating and assigning roles, you know, to take the circle to meet the super circle purpose, etc. So the action there is continuously assigning roles that address attention to the big picture. So it might be, I'm just going to pick something for chasing overdue bills. What happens if that accountability assigned to an individual is consistently missed and not performed against?
Sounds like tension.
So playing that out, that would then get brought up at the, not the government meeting, the one, the tactical, or you do it individually with the person, right?
So there are multiple ways to roam in this sense. You could assign someone else to that role entirely. You could split up that way. If depends on way. If you have to ask a few times why if you get to attention like this. And why is that happening? Why is it not being fulfilled?
Yeah.
Is it different priorities? Is it the person not liking it? Is it capacities? Then there are a lot of operational solutions. Send them to a training, or ask them to take a training. Split up the roles in governance in two roles and get people assigned to the roles, to the two different roles, so they each like that role. Ask them to prioritize it. Maybe it was just dropped off the radar. And what's behind the attention? Why is it not happening? And then there are many operational, because we work so iteratively, you can probably solve it with just an action. Try to do it next week. Okay? Did it work? Did it not work? Let's clarify an accountability. Let's split up the roles into, let's assign some more people. Let's prioritize, whatever it is.
Okay, yeah. So it seems to me as though the burden of responsibility tends to fall on the lead link. Lead link? Sorry, I'm using my terminology. Lead link, sorry. To find a way to get the job done rather than for the person assigned to deliver what they promised to do.
That's a funny thing. Who would be the first one to respond if the builder would not deliver to standards?
Quality.
Not the lead link, right? Quality. Or a city planner, or safety.
Yes.
Just winding back slightly there. anything that's not been performed is not owned, is the responsibility of the lead link. So if
No, anything that's not in the purpose of one of the other roles is the responsibility of the lead link. But if it's been assigned to another role, it's the responsibility of that role.
So is that any so to do with performance related questions or queries that comes from anyone within the circle?
Andrew seems to want to say.
No, but from the point of view of the super circle, it's the responsibility of the lead link to ensure that the circle delivers on.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you're in the super circle meeting, right? And they're like, where's this really important thing that is a priority at this level of the circle? And you're like, I delegated that to somebody else and it wasn't done, but you actually can't see that delegation because as far as you're concerned, it's all my responsibility. So I have to work out how we deal with that, which you then take down into your circle and have.
Is basically like solving problems just by having one-to-one meetings. Other people obviously have noticed those problems before, but because you have a one-to-one conversation, the wider company or circle, whatever, doesn't actually understand that those things have been like solved. In a tactical meeting, you could show that because you've got like a team-wide like acknowledgement, but if it's not logged in some way, the one-to-one interaction, is it still ambiguous? Like people are kind of like will ask lots of questions as to whether or not that has been solved. Did you see what I mean?
Sounds like tension, yeah. Right, so I've seen a couple of ways organizations deal with this tension. You now, a lot gets solved between two roles, or when you do a tactical meeting, you see it as a circle as a whole. And when you go to the tactical meeting of this circle, you might get an update on a higher level from this role to the whole company, but they probably leave out some of those details. So I've seen, and then you say, well, I have a need for more data. Right, the stuff that is solved between those two roles, you want to create more visibility about. Is that what you're saying? What is the need here? What do you want to solve?
It's based on what we have now. Like you basically have multiple people like noticing a problem, and you get that duplication or lack of understanding if someone's already solved something. So unless it's explicitly said that this thing is either being worked on or is now solved, people are just left thinking, oh, should I have that conversation? Should I not? It's just someone else.
Cool. Yeah. So here are a couple of ways to solve that. Now I get it. One way is.
But wouldn't it just be to run through the meeting as quickly as possible? Someone proposes something, and in the reaction round, somebody says, we dealt with it, this is what we come to.
No, because it comes down to the management style. I'd much rather just talk to people on a one-to-one basis to get stuff done. Yeah. But then it's not logged team-wide, circle-wide, whatever, that people understand that those things that they may have acknowledged as being problems are being solved.
So I think I can answer this one. So one thing is, everything you capture in the tactical meeting, if it's a project, it gets to your project board. See if I can zoom it out. So every circle has a project board where by role you see what they're working on. First road built, sports facilities constructed, church completed. They can actually see the status of that project. So anybody in the organization can look this up. And if you want to figure out who is accountable, you can press the search option and with any word you get to the role that's accountable for it. So you can very quickly get a grasp of if you sit with an ID, which role is accountable and are they working and progressing on it. And then you go directly to see if they're doing that. That's one thing. The second thing is have one-on-ones. Go and target those roles directly and say, hey, that sports facility construction is still not completed, but what do you need? You can solve with this amount of transparency a lot of stuff directly. Figure out who is accountable for it, get them a project, and start interacting on it. It's not implicit or under the radar anymore who is accountable for what and who is doing what role. In the Constitution, it actually says that when you fill a role, it's your responsibility to be transparent about the work you do within that role. So if anyone in the organization sees you with no projects, they can ask you, like, hey, can you process your accountability and come up with the projects you're working on? you create a lot of visibility on what everybody is working on. You can look it up at night, in the morning, or whenever you want, immediately. So even if stuff happens between two individuals, if you capture it correctly, people can refer to it, people can find it back, and not much is duplicated typically.
You're talking about the intention specifically, rather than the project.
Yeah, I'm talking more about more to do with for example, performance feedback would be one given in there. So I understand what people are accountable for, and other people would also know what people are accountable for, but that element of giving feedback on performance and things like that.
Yeah.
Other people would have those tensions, and you can have it on a one-to-one, which would probably be more effective to do that, but then other people don't realise that that's being addressed because it's not in a wider tactical meeting. So I take it people just trust that those things are just being solved at all times, but then do you, or do you just have a conversation with the person yourself to bring out performance that you're later to?
What do you need?
Can I offer a suggestion?
Yeah.
My perspective would be that if you feel a performance tension with somebody, then you should be going and talking to the person. And if 15 people feel a performance tension with that somebody, then that person will end up getting 15 performance discussions. I seriously doubt we'll ever get to the point where all 15 are arising all at once. So what's more likely to happen is one person will feel it first, have a chat, another person will feel another performance tension or something else, and then probably the person whose performance was struggling will course correct, so we'll do something else and we'll improve their performance. So you shouldn't get a case where, so the problem that we've had in the past is that people have just stacked up these tensions without actually expressing them.
That's just what's kind of what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get, basically.
Yeah. And Holacracy doesn't say anything about how we should manage performance. It only says on an operational level you can solve tensions as quickly as you can and get work done. If you do performance evaluation with 360 feedback apps, kind of cool, interactive, app-like basis, or you have meetings with all the leadings of the circles you're part of, or it's fully up to you to come up with a process if you find it necessary to do performance evaluation. That's an app. And that's if you talk about a phone with an operating system. Performance evaluation is not part of the operating system.
We could just like huddle shoutout style in a tactical meeting of every circle. But just do like a quick round of what we achieved this week or this month. You know, we could put that as an agenda item. That we do that, or what have we learned? As in, like, what did we fuck up in the last week? So this could be an item as well.
And even I know, Springers in the Netherlands does that. They use that was the first organization in the Netherlands to apply Holacracy. They still do every day company-wide stand-up with all 30 people.
That's pretty intense. Yeah, every day.
Every day, it takes 5 or 10 minutes. There are 30 people, with 30 people you can still pull it off. If you get more than 30 people, it kind of gets... and sometimes they split up into teams of 15, but the goal is to share what you did yesterday and what you will work on today. That's all. And they do that company-wide, and that provides a lot of information, transparency. Then you know outside of the circle what's going on, what's happening, whatever there is. You can do that in the form you like. But there's nothing wrong with all company standards if it serves the purpose.
We travelled some way away from your original question. Do you feel like that's been answered?
I think so, yeah.
Another way companies have done that is if they're slightly bigger. I know an organization that does it through Slack. They use microblogging. They say every day spend 30 seconds to share one highlight. You do that, they have a specific channel that's called microblogging, and everybody puts one blog of 30 seconds on there every day. So if you spend 5 minutes reading the list in the morning, you have kind of view of what's happening in the organization. It's not meant to solve tension, but just to share what you've done. Could also be a way. If the standard doesn't work anymore with 100 people, then this might just do it. Stuff like that. So we'll figure out what you need. Tension by tension. These are also tensions. You have a need to share information outside of circles. who will stand up, solve that, or whatever kind of solution we can come up with.
Do you find a lot of tensions come from people outside of circles that turning up to the tactical meetings, raising tensions because they don't have like a knowledge within the team on particular?
So you mean people from outside the circle turning up to that circle's tactical meetings?
They're not invited.
They're not invited.
They're not invited.
They don't get to do that.
But you can raise an issue with this.
Super circles.
Yeah, the super circles.
They might come. So the funny thing is, I don't see that happening that much. And the circles are goal-oriented. They each have a specific purpose. They're organized around work. The way we try to structure the circles is in a way that within this space you can easily get your work done. And if you here have an operations circle and here a sales circle, there's definitely a handover. But that handover is much less frequent than the interactions within the circle, for example. And because that handover is natural, it doesn't seem a destructive process. It's just like, that's a natural handover from sales to operations and vice versa. And if you start seeing happening a lot of iterations across the border of the circle, you might need to change your structure. And that could be a good tension to actually say, well, if a lot of roles are getting to here, why don't we do this and make a circle here? Because apparently those guys need to work together more closely than in the previous setup. So get aware of indeed the stuff that happens across the borders of the circle, because there could be good tensions to solve in adapting the structure. The starting point is we're here together for a shared purpose. We're organizing work, so everybody gets together that fills a role within the circle, and we'll solve those tensions together. If someone from the outside has a tension, they can, not in the tactical meeting, but at any other point, go directly to that role, or go to the lead link of that circle. Let the lead link figure out how they carry that work into the circle. But hey, if you know that you need a quality person in the circle, why would you go directly to the quality person, right? Let's go role to role direct, solve your tension, instead of going first here, outside, then here, and then it's kind of bureaucratic, right? If you can Google, if you can search who's accountable for quality, just find out that role, ask what you need, and see if they like it. If the role says, talk to them, this is not my thing, get roles, you're not part of my circle. Then you have a formal way through your red link to ask it to the lead link of that circle and see how they figure it out. But again, that's a last resort. Most of the stuff happens between roles.
Which accountability do we still need to go?
Yeah, so this one I think, so as a lead link, you can definitely go and give feedback to people for the roles they play within your circle. If that helps them to be better at their roles, that's what we definitely expect from you as lead link. You're not that people manager, you're not their career guidance, it's hopefully another role somewhere. But do give feedback to them on how they do their roles. And not only you lead links, but everybody can, of course, do that if it helps you. Allocating the service resources across its various projects and the roles. The default in Holacracy is that money, resources, or whatever, other resources go through the chain of command of lead links as a starting point.
Could you expand on that slide?
So, let's take money because it's easy, right? The starting point is that if you need money to spend in one of your roles, you ask lead link. So if I am my...
Why is that the starting point? I thought by default there's no policies around that.
Because it's even inconstitutional.
Okay.
So allocating even the lead link of the general company service is not allowed to do it, except for if there's a spending policy or something, if you formally read it. But the starting point is it's not safe enough to say, guys, here's the checkbook, go, for most of organizations at least. So I know you guys have advice process around that and stuff like that. So for most organizations, if I have a supply role and I need to buy new Lego stuff, I ask my lead link for resources, and if that lead link has a budget or not, they go to their lead link, and in that way we have a control on resources. That's one way. You have a way that you can get resources allocated. Typically, that's very annoying for lead links that on every Lego piece the supplier was going to buy, they're going to ask the lead link for, okay, right, so you get 10 as lead link, you're bored by that pretty soon.
You create a policy.
You create a policy, you say, everybody who spends within their own roles up to £250 can do that, period. If you go up to 1,000, you can, with no objection from role XYZ or whatever kind of thing that's, or you ask advice to whatever kind of policy you want to set that spending happens.
Where are those policies or whatever like stored?
In glass.
In glass.
In glass, probably.
Yeah.
So this about money is in the Constitution, but then you get policies. If I this was if I take here policies of the circle, I put that in. I think the network.
Is this work?
Yeah, you see those aesthetics, quality, and all those which we had before.
Is this work that needs to be done before we can sign the Constitution, or what?
Interesting question. No, it doesn't.
It needs to be done before we can actually run the democracy.
No, it doesn't.
Do it on a fly, do you? You just do it when you've got a problem or when something
Which
happens.
article is it?
It's 5.1. So all existing policies of the organisation continue to have force.
5.4.
That'll be the blank checkbook then.
Check it out.
So I mean, the current policy of the organization is that everybody kind of has a blank check, except there's a kind of implicit sort of gooey expectation that if it's a lot of money, you sort of get an advice process going and stuff. And that presumably is going to get quickly frustrating, and somebody's going to want to make that more explicit.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have an explicit policy as soon as we hit against like people not wanting this to be implicit anymore.
It's back to that thing about until you know the limits of your freedom, you don't know where your freedom is, right? Once you know where the limits of what's in play are, you can just go really quickly there. So actually starting to establish some spending guidelines that say for this, for that, if it's up to this, you can just go ahead and do it. But the other thing for me is, there's always individual action, right? If something just needs to be done for the business, and it just clearly needs to be done right now, you can just go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter what the system says, you can take individual action.
So does that mean that we're not going to go through advice process anymore, or?
So Article 5, Article 5.4, so the starting point with Holacracy is you can take decisions within your roles up to the point you reach a line under a policy, a domain, or whatever. And then 5.4 says about legacy policies and systems. It says any existing policies and systems the organization has in effect before adopting Holacracy continues in full force after the adoption.
Okay.
So if you currently have an advice process, and if that's how you agree to take decisions, that's in force till we put something in that replaces it.
Okay.
So if you have, whatever currently exists keeps on being there until the point you have attention about it.
So for example, one thing that comes in immediately is because we're creating these lead lanes that have these explicit accountabilities like assigning partners to roles and so on. That was previously something that involved a lengthy, complicated advice process. It's now explicitly superseded by this responsibility and by this accountability, and so this is now something where we're going to use the Holacracy much more explicit version rather than the sort of woolly advice process where it's not quite clear if it's consensus or not.
I find the advice, and I know it's, I should watch my words here, I find it a very unhealthy thing to have the advice process, period. The advice process is very valuable for some specific decisions. And that's why the starting...
Make some distinctions there.
Yeah, exactly. So the starting point with Holacracy is, here are your roles, here are your accountabilities, here's the key, go and make as much speed as you want. We trust that within those space you can make your own decisions. Let's start with it. And only And we in our own organization have that advice process. But that advice process is, the policy says, I can put it up actually, I'll do it in a second. It's called the Making Hard to Change Decisions policy, I think. You apply the advice process, you ask for advice to roles that are affected by the decision if it's hard to change around or it has a significant external exposure. In those two cases, you have to apply the advice process before you carry on, but only for those two cases. There we say it's much better to slow down, get advice, before you take the decision. But for any other decision, no advice process, please make speed, because we believe in iterative decision making. You learn much more from doing the work and learning from reality than learning from advice. Interesting.
Well, can you give a couple of just examples of something that might be in or out of advice?
So the most recent case I pulled it up was when we wanted to launch a new website. I'll just pull up the. This is our organization, and if I go to its company policy, we're testing the Dutch version. Language, role, attentions, making hard to change decisions. This is the 150 words last time. Oh, it doesn't break. Okay. So in any role, before you implement a decision that could have a significant impact on the organization internally and especially externally towards stakeholders, and where it will be significantly difficult or expensive to undo that impact, you must first share your intent to do so with any partner who you believe could have useful information to inform the decision, or who feel goals likely to be significantly impacted by it. You must then delay your decision for a reasonable time frame, typically 48 hours.
So what kinds of decisions are those again?
So,
this is not clear enough.
Any decision where, so this is quite a generic thing. The one I pulled it recently was with the website. Our website developer wanted to put a new website live, but he had a version without the page I use most actively in my acquisition role. We have an explore page where we list a lot of articles, and I typically leave that behind with people who want to explore more about Holacracy. I do that a few times a week, so if he left out that page in the website update, I find it harmful, because I had a few conversations the week before, and those people will be looking up that web page. I wanted to stop that website going live. And he could decide that, he could do that in his role, but it had a significant external exposure, so I called out this policy and said, hey wait, let's ask some advice and get this going before just changing this external exposure thing. And then we had a discussion about it, I raised an objection, I got in some advice, and we decided to delay the website going live for 2 days and add that page, and off we went.
I guess it's just easy to argue with any decision that's basically taken in this company that will impact other people. So how do we differentiate between decisions that are more important to seek feedback for, at least initially?
Well, it says there that it will have a significant impact, and it's difficult or expensive to undo that impact. So if it's not difficult to undo it doesn't matter if it has significant impact.
And those words take out 95% of the decisions, because most of your decisions you can adjust the day later or iterate on. If you're really conscious about which decisions are hard to change back, or expensive to change back, if you would decide to, if someone is accountable for renting office space, and they would decide independently to just move to another building, that might be hard to change around, to cancel the lease here, etc.
So same with perhaps hiring somebody or...
Yeah.
But for example, on a decision, so for example, your web developer, he may not have, or she may not have understood the impact of their decision. So for example, if the next day when they're going to pull that website down, you could have had the biggest pitch of your life in front of a massive company, and it could have completely gone down, but because it's not explicitly put out there, that person's just acting on it. You only can sort of work on that retrospectively and go into firefighting mode, right?
And that hardly happens. But that's why we want to build up that governance.
It's just a trust thing, right?
You just first it's a trust. trust that when you have a policy like this, people are getting, because they have that role for a time. This guy was making website updates already for quite some time. He got information from all people in the company about what is important for the website. Him above all people should know which pages are visited to. If I would trust one person to do that correctly, it's this role, that person. So there's a lot of, because people, if you feel every week a different role, it's kind of hard to build up meaningful knowledge and experience about that role. But typically you feel a role for some time, you're the best person in the organization with the most information to take decisions in that role. And by just adding this small piece, you get a bit of awareness when you impact a lot of other roles. But the majority of the decisions you take as a website manager are small iterative changes. You learn from that a lot more and get a lot more feeling for the type of decisions you can take than anybody else. And if that actually happens, so based on that instance, I actually added, especially externally, those two words were not yet there. We added that, and this text didn't come up in one go. This has been 10 governance changes or so. Because every time you learn, and you don't want to fall back to, and you want to, based on the decisions you take and the interactions you have, you want to keep on learning. We figured out that as a consulting company, our external exposure is actually one of the most important things. It's actually more important than money for us. So I might even, if stuff on external exposure happens again, I might just take out the brackets and put it all the way up to the front, because external exposure is much more important than difficult or expensive for us. If I was a business that operates on a very low margin, expensive is probably more important than, I don't know, maybe. So this also evolves tension by tension. What is the right line on the road that really helps us make the right decisions? Those policies are one thing. The other thing is what you see in accountabilities of roles. That also will evolve over time. And that city planner defines priorities for the builder kind of works. But hey, there was someone doing a lot of creative work which didn't work out. So we might want to rephrase those accountabilities in a way that the next time this will go better. And that's going to be hard work over the next 2 months too. Because on that accountability level, it's much easier to create the relationship between roles than with this kind of broad, generic accountabilities. We'll figure out what the meaningful description of your equivalent of the builder and the city planner role is. But those accountabilities will make clear how you can make decisions, hopefully a lot. And then we see people making speed within the space of those roles. And then meaningfully looking for advice where they need it. The most unexpected, for me it's not unexpected, but if you give people autocratic leadership, they say you can make the decisions, the first thing they do is ask for more advice. Because suddenly you know you can take the decision, so you can look at advice a lot different than going for consensus or other kind of ways, if you don't have an advice process yet. But don't let the advice process slow you down. That's what I hear a bit, that now everything goes through advice. Even simple decisions you can just try. Go and try a lot more. Role allocation, just go and try. Take that role for a couple of weeks, see how it works, and give it back, change it over. Don't wait for 2 weeks to make a collective advice on that without testing it in reality. Maybe you're making it too black and white, but see what reality is typically a much better advice than theoretical philosophical responses.
I have a question about the leading responsibilities.
Yeah.
If you can show it again. When allocating surplus resources, does the word surplus resources include people or not? Because I don't think surplus resources are people. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you clarify that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not about, like, this responsibility is not about allocating people. That's the previous one. And so it's not like, about allocating, I have, £50,000 a year of budget, so I'm going to hire 2 people for £25,000 each. And that's not what it's talking about here.
If you as a lead link gets £50,000 and it's not labeled for a specific project or something, And the best way you can use it is to hire 2 guys externally to spend that money. And there's no policy that says you cannot do that, go and do it.
But then those people might move to other circles.
Yeah.
So like you're spending with the knowledge that you're not necessarily actually allocating the.
So if there is a tension that people then you have some organizations, if you have roles that are capital intensive or that require a lot of training to get them up to the quality standards, you might say if you accept this role, you accept it at least for a year and you can only give up your role with a 3 months notice. Could be a very meaningful policy, right? It's a restriction, but if that's meaningful to do, that I can see circles or roles that need that kind of policy, but only when it happens. Then the majority of times you agree on that kind of logical. But yeah, some organizations have that kind of policy. They say, wait, these roles are not on and off week by week. You need to have them. We need you longer in that role if you accept it.
Like
we invest in you. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have tensions about it, if that's happening, is this really happening? Put in a policy. Okay. Make clear that if people accept that role, they do it for a certain amount of time or for a certain whatever it is.
Can you tell us about the priorities and strategies?
Yeah. Establishing priorities and strategies for the circle. So as lead link, you don't want to, on Monday morning, do all kind of one-on-one meetings with everybody to set their priorities for the week. Meet with them on Friday and say, hey, what did you check off? And then start that rhythm again on Monday. There are 2 ways you do this typically. One is if roles themselves can figure it out, the church versus sauna thing we discussed. Then as lead link, as last resort, you can say, if you give me 2 concrete projects, I'll choose which one is more important for the circle. By the constitution you can do that. But only if it's concrete, one above the other. It can be very helpful for a circle to keep going. And don't get bogged down on discussions this or that, sauna versus church. Also the evening, prioritize and just get going and first build the sauna and then the church sauna, go and do it. So that's one, that's about priorities. Strategies is what we talked about in the morning, the heuristics. That's what you can do as a lead link.
I'll see if here some examples.
That's the air quality doesn't do much. Whatever.
Oh yeah. So these are our strategies. Clients first. Hack growth like we're 10 times bigger. Value and quality even over speed. Cash is king. Becoming found even over searching ourselves. Create solid foundational basics even over full transformation and sophistication. This is a statement the lead link made. That was me. And with this statement, everybody can prioritize their work. If I have a good statement as lead link, I don't need to do much on prioritization on a daily basis and stuff like that.
So these seem almost like the statements that you have as values for organizations, except each circle can define their own, right?
Yeah. So each circle below our company circle can do this themselves in alignment with the company strategy.
Yeah.
Is there underlying tactics within that to show how you're actually executing? Because sometimes the strategy can just be like really kind of abstract, and a lot of companies roll very similar strategies, but then execute them incredibly different.
That's a nice strategy, right?
Yeah. No, but it's a good one. So the default is the lead link can set this, and everybody needs to align their projects with it. So value and quality even over speed, that's our most challenging one. We love to go fast, but we're actually slowing down to increase the quality of the work we do, the value we deliver to clients, than to add more clients to it. It's very tough as a
Plus
small
that kind of
organization.
disagrees with cash is king as well, because if cash is the most important thing, then that can, how do you then differentiate which one is more important in a given situation?
This creates tension, yeah. There's natural tension in this. And if I think we can hold on to this strategy for a couple more months, But I think somewhere after some of this will break down. Because then we've put too much effort on this and too little on that, so we might change it around. But until that time, we'll put maximum attention to value and quality. But yeah, the point in time it will...
So do you then evaluate, like, with this particular strategy, to what extent it helps you fulfill your purpose? Like, because how do you then, like, in 2 months you sit down and look at this, okay guys, so we've changed this, and we've done this, and how do you then evaluate if you're any closer to the purpose, that fulfilling the purpose than you were before?
I'll put it on my list. I'll send you. Holacracy has a specific meeting format where you can do a strategy creation as a group. You not only create a statement, but you immediately unpack it. If this is our strategy, what do we want to measure? What kind of metrics do we need now? What kind of checklist? What projects is everybody now taking up as a priority? And what kind of projects do they put on their back burner? Because with this statement they're less important.
Client satisfaction, for example?
Yeah, that's one of the new metrics we put in. It wasn't there before we put in the strategy. And now it's one of our metrics. We should look at, I think, monthly or so about all the client ratings and stuff we do and get back. It's much more on the forefront when adding this. So, yeah, if it remains a vague statement, you have a tough job as leading. If you can translate this to actual projects and how people work in their roles, it's incredible to see a whole circle, like as one conscious mind shift their attention in a certain direction, and to agree within our organization that we have this prioritization, solve so many of the discussions, that we agree that value and quality goes over speed. Makes it so easy now to align on where we put our efforts. And now it's so much easier for me to say, I much rather spend a few more hours preparing this workshop than to talk to 5 more potential clients or to take up some small. It solves a lot of the tensions if we all agree that this is our focus for the coming months.
But you prioritise those because they do pull you in different directions, some of your own strategies.
So for us, they kind of work out in a way, because there's for us very little tension in these directions, because cash is king primarily works out in operational spending. We don't go into growth or stuff like that much. So we're conscious about spending, and then there's not much tension. But this is exactly what you want to do. This is quite a lot of statements. You can go in a lot less statements if you like to. I could keep it to just a single statement. Maybe that would be enough for our circle going forward. But what kind of statements would help your circle to just prioritize their work like in alignment in that way? So that's what you can do as a meeting. There are great formats to run that meeting. If you do that every 3 months, to align with each other where you prioritize your time, it's incredible how you see the complete attention of a group of people focused on a common goal.
As long as it's like drilled in with tactics on actually how to execute, and it becomes part of, say, metrics that are given server, otherwise it can just still be lost, right? Because everybody can interpret those things still differently. Yeah, exactly. Or prioritise differently based on different strategies. So such a strategy meeting typically has 2 parts. First, the 3 parts. First, you look back, what happens, like a retrospective. What have we learned? What is meaningful data? How have we gone the last 3 months? Then you create a statement like this, and then you unpack it. And you leave that meeting only when you come up with new projects, metrics, actions. What are we going to do different? Let's immediately translate this kind of vague statement to actual work. So that's indeed part of the...
But that's also like self-management, isn't it? Right? We say as a circle, like, this is the most important thing for us to achieve, or this is more important than this. Yeah. And then it's like, what do the tactics look like? I don't know, it's your role, it's your work, figure it out dynamically. You know, try this today, try that tomorrow, see what works.
So this is the statement, prioritize your work accordingly.
Well, the other strategy is set with like other people involved, or just the lead link just sort of take that and do them. Like I'm assuming that when I'm thinking about like, metrics and things that are set for the entire company, this is going to be done by lead, link, and the anchor circle. So they're going to set metrics or something that they want to happen within the company, and then it passes down through the other lead links. Then when it comes to setting strategy for the circle, yeah, I guess I'm just curious about what the strategy meeting looks like.
Yeah, so what?
Because it's almost like the lead link has targets from whoever is in the super circle. So are they the one that then decides?
So it would be, it would be very weird if I would find a company that, if you would just put that statement on, that it just works. And we're humans, we're not machines. There's a lot of interpretation about those statements. So this is really collective work. There's a lot of convincing and interpretation and storytelling involved to, if your strategy would be quality and value even over speed, everybody has a different interpretation about that. So I as lead link can just put in the strategy, but it would be really weird if it just worked. It's much better work if you do that collectively, if everybody understands why that is important. That's now you get to the how your personal style makes you effective as a lead link. How are you going to convey that strategy statement? How do you get everybody aligned toward this is really meaningful if we align ourselves in this direction? So yeah, it hardly works to putting a statement in a software tool. So that's where you have to do your convincing storytelling and stuff like that.
I'm fairly keen to finish roughly on time.
Same.
I'm happy to.
I think we have one to go, right? Only the last one.
Yeah,
So I think we covered all of them except.
Shall we do it?
Yeah.
Yes, let's go.
What does, you guys are better in English than me, what does it mean? Removing constraints within the circle to the super circle, connecting its purpose and accountability.
I have an interpretation.
Go for it.
This means identifying the constraints that are happening within the circle that the super circle could solve for the circle, and bringing them to the super circle to get them, like fixed, basically. Within the circle, I find that there's not enough money to be able to buy enough pieces of paper to do the work within the circle, and I might take that to the super circle and say we need more money to buy more pieces of paper so we can do our work.
Yeah. Just get unstuck. Whatever limits your circle, solve it. Cool. From the broader perspective.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah. That's a bit a leaping role. Go and explore with those accountabilities. Check how your personal style fits with them, what kind of how you make them work. And if it takes you, in the initial months, more than 3 hours a week, that's less than 3 hours a week, that's fine. If it's more than 3 hours a week, go and check out if that's really still the leading role or just could be another role. And then offboard it, make someone else accountable for it, because then it's probably more of a manager thing than a leading thing. And this role, you want to get it to the background primarily. There's really something wrong with the circle if the lead link talks for 75% of the time in a technical meeting or something like that. You have to solve other tensions than you're doing there. So let's explore, let's see how that lead link works out. And tomorrow we'll also spend time on reading Constitution, so we'll get through that role and stuff around it as well. So let's see. Cool.
Awesome, thank you very much.
This is a non-obligatory side point that just like self-organisation and self-management geeks might be interested in, which is that when we started using the advice process, we got quite closely to the kind of form that is in Enjoy at Work, about anybody can make it, anyone make a decision has to seek advice. But notice how that's evolved for us now to become something where actually the name advice process to the principle that we apply it to is a bit misleading. This idea that anybody can make any decision provided they have the information they need to make a good decision for the business. This is why I see Holacracy as really like the next step on the trajectory of self-management that we're already on. Because a business that applies that rule, to me, is a self-managing business. There's an identity between those things. And Holacracy just helps us structure much more clearly a sense of, well, what information do you need in order to like make a good decision for the business? And it says, well, if you're in pursuit of the objective of your role, probably all the information that you need is that, and you can just go ahead and do it. Yeah. Or if it's not in pursuit of your role, but it's in pursuit of the objective of the circle that you're in, then again, probably you can just go ahead and do it. If it's something more like individual action and it's not so clear, then maybe you need some more advice. But it's, you know, this is a real pivot from like the advice process to the point that we had evolved it to the point where actually the name, the advice process, is maybe a bit misleading. So.
Okay, and everything you just said doesn't change in Holacracy. Up to the point you reach policy or domain.
Yeah.
And as long as you guys are careful with not too many of those, you can just keep doing what exactly what I say.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
I thought we are going on board sure we're going to, by the way, just a good exchange. Daniel's got a strong preference, and I have a need so he doesn't get in his way. That's my need. So
Tali, do you have rules at home which finish now saying who is accountable to make this decision?
there's no accountability.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's I was keep on rambling about this continuously.
Shall we have a quick double loop checkout?
Right.
Could you be familiar with double loop checkouts?
I know the double loop concept, but not in the checkout sense.
So I think like we reflect on how it like how it went and how the process of it went as well. So like not just the thing, but also the process.
Right.
The process being what in that case?
Like the structure and like how to deliver this in the future, which I think is helpful feedback.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, for us as well. So yeah. Anybody want to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to start.
Me too.
You start.
Okay, now that I'm put on the spot. I think in general positive, so I touched base quickly with some people and they feel quite excited about it. I think it could have been a little bit more upbeat energetically. So I really enjoyed obviously the work that we all did with the building stuff. I almost wish we had more time and also more time to do it tomorrow. And also feel, I don't know if it was like that in other little circles, in other little groups, but it felt like we were sidetracked way too often. Part of that was my responsibility for not being strict enough as a facilitator, but it felt like we were getting into a lot of discussions and we were asking questions about the process as opposed to just being in it. And maybe if there was a way of there being kind of more energy, maybe more breaks, maybe just more activities. Tomorrow that could be even better. But yeah, overall, I think a little bit tired, but that was fully expected. Thank you.
I felt like I'm happy with the way that the day went overall. I got the impression, and I'd love to hear feedback from Andrew and Pao on this, because there was a kind of style of explaining that I felt like you kind of explained things really like a lot, and like maybe it was just my impression that people have got it and we kept on going for a while. But it felt like it could be a little bit shorter. But maybe that's.
But maybe it's us that get it.
Yeah, maybe. So that's why I'd like some feedback from others as well on that. It was just my own frustration when I'm speaking there, and like just because I understand the stuff, and maybe it was okay. Like it was important to keep, because it felt like you say something and then you keep going on the same topic, where I felt like, okay, we'll move to the next accountability. But then we kind of got through all the accountabilities. So I don't know, maybe this is not very useful feedback. It was just an impression I got. And overall, I suspect, I think it would have been maybe a bit better if we had the timings a bit more right, but it was...
Yeah, just a bit more snappier timing. So I really appreciated, by the way, that you were on it, and when we brought in, well, according to the agenda, we're supposed to be doing this. I really appreciate that they were guarding the time. And maybe, if possible, even more involvement from people, because that always energizes them. Guys, go and do this. Like, give me 5 reasons why this would work. Like, just more back and forth as opposed to kind of sitting, because then more and more people on their laptops. And
people definitely weren't feeling like leaving while they were building Lego stuff and like going through rounds and so on. So like, because when they were engaged with the task, they were happy. This one, they were sitting here for like an hour and a half.
So maybe throw more things at the people and get them to answer or to bring up stuff.
Difficult to do. Facilitate.
I think that this is how we chose to do it, you know, like we could have, well, I mean, I said, you know, we should do like separate data workshop, blah, 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 and then you're like, no, we'll do it in half a day and we'll just get to it. Okay, well, fine, that's what we did, you know, that's what we did.
Yeah.
I'm aware that, you know, as ever, there will be inevitably months of backlash about, oh, those 2 days that we spent in that room, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I'm already, like, my skin is crawling at the thought of that. But it's just, I mean, it's just, people will complain, oh, it didn't really work for remote people. Nobody ever thinks about remote people. And
is this a problem that you know will happen, or are you anticipating?
I am anticipating based on prior experience. But, you know, it's like, I don't know. Sometimes, I think it's just part of the process. You know, people don't, you know, like, people will complain for 2 months, and then a year later, people will say, I'm so grateful that we did those 2 days up front, because without that, there's just loads of stuff that we wouldn't have, you know, we wouldn't have learned, or we'd have had to learn the hard way, and it really provided us with some orientation. My group, you know, my New Amsterdam group, were very laid back and easygoing. We had a very relaxed tactical meeting and a very relaxed governance meeting, you know?
Yeah, my group, the tactical meeting was really easy and went really quickly because, I mean, and this is what I was mentioning before when we were preparing for this, people are already used to just doing things without asking for permission, so they were just like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Yeah. And they didn't have that much tensions with each other. When they did, they just asked each other, they just spoke. So it was actually quite difficult to summon up the tensions to process. The governance one, I then went, okay, let's go and like get some tensions, and create some tensions, and then it all went pear-shaped. Because a lot, like, and this is what I mentioned as well in the Q&A afterwards, it felt like possibly, and I'm making up an explanation, but possibly because people here are used already to pushing against the boundaries and testing, like they immediately went for the boundaries.
Great.
And started saying like, I don't remember what they were.
Well, this is not particularly, could we end there just testing the boundaries?
Yeah, they were just testing the boundaries of Holacracy, rather than learning the process. So it was like, well, you know, let's learn the process first and then test the boundaries of what that means. But you know, which is tricky because
it's really important because people want to know that they are safe in the process, right? So they want to be like, if I really push at this, is it going to provide